While I'm smoking, I'll be smooth. He poison my food with a suicidal potion. I'll be smooth. But these groupies with dooney type emotions with their juicy thighs are smoking.
I feel like I should do a little song and dance. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. Welcome back. Welcome back for the afternoon session. It's so loud. There is no bringing these people back. Okay, wonderful. So the next session is on caregiving, and my name is Melinda Kavanaugh. I'm a professor of social work at the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee, and I'm also the president and founder of Global Neuro Y Care organization dedicated to children and youth and families with neurological conditions, including ALS and MND. So it's my absolute honor to be able to moderate this section on caregiving in ALS, MND. So I have to read my notes. To start off, I would like to welcome our first presentation, Drs. Xian Xiao and Sammy Winemaker, for a presentation on improving care for ALS, motor neuron disease, and other illnesses, evolution of a patient-family revolution. Please welcome.
Thank you. Yes.
Oh, all right. Don't worry. We'll get the energy up. I'm going to put my timer on because
You're not using this.
Oh, I'm not using this. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
This is okay. So we don't go over time.
Is this working? Can
Yes.
you hear? Okay.
Hi. I'm Xian.
And I'm Sammy.
Thank you so much. We're thrilled to be here. We're from Canada. I'm very excited and honored to have the opportunity to present to you some of our work. You want us to go this way? Okay, because of the online folks. Hi, online.
Oh,
We just had
over
lunch.
here?
I hope you did too. Okay. So I'll just introduce myself a little bit. I am a palliative care researcher. I have spent 20 years trying to do research to demonstrate the benefits of palliative care, how early palliative care can improve patient outcomes. And I will tell you, even though I go to people and say early palliative care matters, they run away from me. Even in my own family, and I often hear, well, that might be for different reasons, but I often hear from patients and families, even in my own family, when my mother died 30 years ago from breast cancer, or my best friend's father died of ALS in Canada, they said, I wish I had known that sooner, and why didn't anyone tell me that?
Mm-hmm. And I'm Sammy Winemaker. I'm a palliative care physician, and I work in the most incredible care setting called people's homes. And I've been working in people's homes for about 20 years now. And over time, I feel like I see the same scenario over and over and over again, where a patient and family who I unfortunately meet in the very advanced stage of their illness also feel that they're confused about where they've come in their illness, where they're at now in their illness journey, and what to expect going forward. I should mention that the two of us work in palliative care. ALS is one of the patient populations that we care for, but there's other progressive life-limiting illnesses as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So because this is international, maybe some people don't recognize Lucy and Ethel. Does anyone here recognize Lucy and Ethel? Yeah? Okay, so it is an American sitcom from the 1950s, and you might wonder why we're showing this iconic clip of Lucy and Ethel on a conveyor belt. They cannot keep up with the chocolates that are coming their way. And so they stuff them everywhere, down their shirts and their hats. And Sienna and I love this clip because to us it represents the healthcare system, patients and families. So the healthcare system would be the conveyor belt. It just keeps going, and the standard conveyor belt with the number 5 scoop. And Ethel and Lucy represent healthcare providers who simply just can't keep up, and they are stressed out as well. And the chocolates, who represent the patients and families who want to be seen as unique truffles, not just any old chocolate coming down the conveyor belt. So we often think of this metaphor.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
That's my slide. We're not married to each other, by the way. Sometimes people, that's the first question they ask. But anyway, okay. So we understood that in order to change end-of-life care or the advanced stage of an illness like ALS or MND, we really had to affect change from the beginning. We had to go upstream and see what are the problems that are happening at the beginning and the middle of the illness that result in us seeing people at the end so discombobulated.
Yeah. And so how we got together as colleagues and friends. Work partners.
Yeah.
We worked on committees together in our region to try to affect change. Sammy has been doing clinician education for decades. She's won awards for it. I have been creating research interventions, trying to do education for providers. How many of you do education for providers? Some part of your role? Okay, a small part. Well,
we were frustrated.
We were frustrated because we've spent a lot of time doing that, and I think well-meaning clinicians, but it was slow moving. And one day, Sammy asked me if we teach all the clinicians, we're missing the patients and families. And so a light bulb went off for us 10 years ago, and we have started to think of what does early palliative care look like when we go upstream for patients and families. What would education look like? And so that was the beginning of this social movement called the Waiting Room Revolution. And so in the next little bit, we'll tell you about what that is, why that matters to you, and what you can do if you want to be part of the revolution. Mm-hmm. So we actually thought it would be really easy because there's tons of evidence of the benefits of palliative care. So we thought we would take our palliative care food truck and go upstream and offer to patients and families, hey, look at all the evidence and the benefits and all the tools we have. Don't you want early palliative care? And guess what? There was no one in line for our food truck.
No one wants the P word.
Yeah, the big P word. And so, no surprise, they didn't want what we were selling because this was what was on the menu. Not surprising to many patients and families in the audience online as well. When they see these terms, they aren't looking on the right side, they're looking on the left. And many people think it feels like we're giving up and we're planning for death. So we learned many people don't want to plan for death, but they want to prepare for the journey ahead, and they don't want to be overwhelmed. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what we had to do was take all the research data that CN had harnessed over decades and all the patient stories, thousands of stories from the bedside, and we deconstructed what was a palliative approach, and we dove deep into the stories and the data, and then we put a facelift on all of that. We reconstructed it, put it back together, gave it a new vibe, a new mojo, something that would meet people where they were at the stage of their readiness in the beginning of their illness journey.
Can I just say one thing before we go to the next slide? Seriously, we believe that an early palliative care approach is everybody's business. It isn't just the role of specialist palliative care providers like Sammy. It's the role of all interprofessionals, and that's what we had been doing for 20 years, doing education. But the idea now is everybody includes patients and families. So how do we activate them and bring them into it too? So.
That's true. Okay, so about our gold mining. So about harnessing all the data and the stories we had, something happened. We realized that we could separate groups into two. One huge group that we labeled patients and caregivers or families who were in the dark. And the in the dark folks had an illness journey that was reflected by these words up here. Basically, they felt unsure, they didn't recognize themselves, they felt like a widget on a conveyor belt. And there was a smaller group of people who may have the same illness, but they felt in the know. So they were in the dark and in the know. And the in the know folks had a much better illness experience, where they felt more empowered, more activated, more in control, more grounded, more hopeful. And so we were tickled pink about this because we could then see that 7 themes bubbled up that were the difference between being an in the dark group or in the know group. And these 7 themes that would make the difference between the two, we called keys, because they would unlock how to have an in the know illness experience. And these 7 keys have very plain language. You're not going to find them particularly sexy or innovative or mind-blowing, but they are truly the 7 things that make it or break it for an illness journey.
Yeah, and so we'll just briefly tell you these 7 keys, and I know perhaps they'll sound quite simple, but that is in fact why they work. These were metaphors that we co-designed with patients and families from all different diseases and clinicians of what the secret was. So the first one...
Okay, I just want to say one thing.
Okay.
Okay. We're so sneaky. Basically, what this represents is a palliative approach. This is a palliative approach, but we don't label it a palliative approach. We label it as these 7 keys. But if patients and families from the beginning of their illness learn how to extract this kind of information from the uncomfortable healthcare system, they essentially will be getting a palliative approach without even knowing it. Yes.
So the first thing that we are teaching patients, families how to do is to walk 2 roads, which is learning how to hope for the best and plan for the rest. Not plan for the worst, which is what many clinicians said and they shut down. When we said hope for the best, plan for the rest, they suddenly were more open to think about what is the next steps for them. And that gray area, that vagueness, allowed them to enter into new conversations.
Instead of staying on the road of toxic positivity. Zoom out is the next key. And this is a key that teaches patients and families how to get out of the busy day-to-day of the illness and zoom out and find the big picture or the storyline of their illness that can act as a roadmap, an important scaffolding to help them feel grounded.
The third key is many people think that whatever illness they have, such as ALS, that is going to define their experience. And of course it does. But the biggest thing that defined their experience was their style, how they had faced challenges in the past, and what kind of person they were, their personal characteristics. So knowing their style allowed them to lean into the patterns of their life and how that would play out in their illness, and also give intel to their inner crew, that's how the people around them, of how they might also react so that they could work together and just have, and not get so frustrated at why certain patterns weren't changing.
And have realistic expectations of themselves and the people around them.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The 4th key is customize your order. And this is about helping people to identify what's most important to them, what they value, what they hold close to their heart, what they wouldn't want to give up, and to bring that to every single encounter with the healthcare system so that they are basically saying, I'm unique. This is me. I'm not a widget on a conveyor belt.
Yeah. Expecting ripple effects is what would be clear to many people in the room. It's recognizing that no person goes on an illness journey alone. There's a ripple effect on their families, their inner crew around them, and beyond. And so the family is really on a parallel illness journey, and they ought to be in the know and as prepared as they can. And so we talk about what it means to be a caregiver, how they can be prepared, and how to invite themselves and and make it as a choice. It's not assigned or delegated to them.
We know you know all of this, but again, remember, this is what we're helping patients and families understand at the beginning. Okay, so connect the dots. Does any country that's represented here have a perfect healthcare system? No, not a hand. Okay. Well, so this is about acknowledging that the healthcare systems are not perfect, and there are gaps, and that patients and families, whether we like it or not, become the important glue between transition points. And people have a right to understand their role as, illness managers and what they can do themselves to help feel like the right hand and the left hand is speaking.
You want to do this one?
Oh, sure. Invite yourself as the last one. That's the 7th one. So many patients and caregivers that we've met feel that if they are quiet and laid back and the proverbial good patient, that they will get better care. And you know what those people get? The conveyor belt. They get standard care, which is probably good for many people, but it's not bespoke or unique care. And so Invite Yourself is about helping people find their voice and encouraging them to be respectfully activated, not aggressive, respectfully activated or gently fierce in their illness journey. And if that's not their personal style, then find someone like CN who is more than gently fierce.
So these keys are sort of what someone told us at lunch was, if I can call you out, Jessica, but you had said you wish you had some of these keys earlier, right? If you had read them for your mom, you wish you had known this. And so this is meant as a guidebook or the information for patients at the beginning of an illness, not just late stage. So I wrote just what's revolutionary. I mean, I won't pretend that it didn't take us a long time to narrow this down and get the language right so that it was clear and hopeful. That was the hardest part, because palliative care is not typically thought of as that.
Yet realistic.
Yeah, realistic. Had to be patient-led. These are actions that we're not teaching clinicians how to do, although they could. It's patient-led. They're actions, they're very clear, and they can be introduced upstream in an illness right from diagnosis. So that was why we thought this was a different take on what's been out there. Mm-hmm. So we put that all into this social movement. I think ALS, this International Alliance, knows what social movement is. I mean, I think the Ice Bucket Challenge has been a great example of something that people can take and spread and do on their own. So we really sort of followed in many of the same principles to create a waiting room revolution, one where the goal was to put the human back at the center of care for patients, families, and providers. Mm-hmm. So we've done all this work. But what are the signals? This is the why you should care. What are the signals that this isn't just another research paper that's going to sit on the shelf, or that patients and families actually want this?
I was looking at everyone and I got distracted. Okay. So we, during COVID, decided that we were going to start a podcast. Because after we decided to start a social movement, which we had no idea how to do, we decided to develop a website and then also start being podcasters, co-hosts and producers. He's the producer. And we had no idea how to do that, but we learned how to do it during COVID. From your clothing closet, my clothing closet, that's the best sound system. We dropped a podcast or two, or 9 seasons, actually. Yeah. And so season 1 is the heart of our social movement. So I encourage you to listen to that podcast season if you're interested.
Yeah, I mean, we were trying to just test out the idea, put it out there and try it. So season 1 has each of the episodes, and we have a guest, a patient, family who talks about and represents that key. We are 9 seasons in. To our surprise, we're 3 years in. We are in the top 1.5% of global podcasts. We're listened to in 100 countries and over 125,000 downloads. I say all this because each of our guests are people that we learn from. They're not just people from the palliative care community. They represent patients, families from different walks of life, all talking about this idea of improving the patient-family experience.
It has about next week.
Next week, yeah, well, that's the next slide.
Oh.
The next week. So our most popular episode is season 1, Walk 2 Roads. So people are referring back, and many clinicians refer to their patients to that. But next week, this is our month. We're at the end of season 9. Well, you'll recognize Catherine Cummings. There's somewhere who has been a great friend and ally here. So check it out. We have a little teaser out, but it's a great episode. I loved talking with Catherine. We could have talked for a long time. Mm-hmm. She was in her car. Mm-hmm. We have a YouTube video. We are now on YouTube.
She's the reason why we're here today, too.
Yeah, exactly. So, but lots of great people. Tilly Stevens is a doula from New Zealand. So international guests, lots of exciting conversations. So check it out if that's of interest. Is this me? Yeah.
And yeah,
you can.
Okay. And some people don't listen to podcasts and they don't go to websites. And so we wrote a book. We decided to do a good old-fashioned paper book, because some people like that. And so we called it Hope for the Best, Plan for the Rest, because we wanted it to be hopeful and approachable, with also a lot of realistic, actionable, practical things that are inside.
Yeah. We have some on sale at the booth outside, but it's an ebook, an audiobook, online, any bookstore across the world, which has been pretty amazing for us. And we're 1 year in, and it's doing great. But it was really meant as a guidebook for patients and families, and they have told us that when they read it, they feel empowered, activated. They didn't know there was information that they could have, because that's what it's about. Information is power, and the earlier you have information, the more they can think about what they can do or start to think about what choices they want to make. So this is an example of a book. The most common question we get is, that's all great, Sian and Sammy, but the person I know doesn't want to know. They don't want to talk about it. They're overwhelmed. They can just day to day. This book belongs to someone, a wife of somebody with dementia, who was like, I'm day to day. I'm overwhelmed. And this is the copy of her book. It is highlighted, dog-eared. She read it in her own time somehow. And she said, there were questions in here that I'm going to ask my doctor tomorrow. So it was very practical. And in fact, when we wrote this, or the book wrote us in a way, it's a how-to guide. It's a how to be a patient, how to be a family, how to navigate an imperfect healthcare system.
With a life-changing illness.
Yeah.
Okay. And we are on social media. We had to learn that too. We tried TikTok and LinkedIn and Instagram and YouTube and Twitter, X. We did a lot of learning in COVID because neither of us have an affinity for technology. You too, Sam.
Yeah, oh, I'm terrible.
But anyway, so the best news was where we thought we would be run out of town by clinicians who thought maybe we were sharing our dirty laundry with the public and the citizens of the world. Healthcare providers actually have responded overwhelmingly positive about our content. And this is just one comment from someone. It totally changed my perspective and approach to patients with life-limiting illness. And I think it's also an amazing resource for patients as well, which is why we did it. But that was good news.
Yeah, and it's the language. Like, for example, we talk about, hope for the best, plan for the rest. That's different language than they were using when they were saying plan for the worst, or best case, worst case, things like that. So they're changing their language, just like patients read it, and they change their language too. All right, so what's next? How can we change the world? Which is, we are so impressed by the community you built here. I mean, instantly we walked into the room, the representation, the inclusion of patients and families into every piece of and conversation you have, it is incredible. If we had to dream up an organization of how you would want to bring the right people together to make change, you guys have been doing it. I've been doing it for 30 years. So thank you for allowing us to learn from you. But we know a podcast, or an academic paper, a book even, doesn't change the world. We need many people working together. So everyone is part of the revolution. Maybe you guys have a name for your revolution, but ours is the waiting room revolution. And we need everyone to work a little differently, or be open to working a little differently, particularly patients and families. I think that is our biggest opportunity. So we have designed, as Sammy said, a website. On our website, waitingroomrevolution.com, we have links to lots of free resources. Our podcast is free. We have our book. We have a book club discussion guide, because people who read it said, we're bringing groups together, ask us questions. And one of the most exciting things we've done in the past year is partner with other organizations. So Health Canada has been a big supporter. They've had a public health campaign about palliative care. So they created this poster campaign, 3 questions to ask your healthcare team. You can see it doesn't say palliative care, it doesn't smell of palliative care, but it is a palliative care approach. It's good care, it's good person, family-centered care. So they printed 30,000 copies of this poster, put it all over, partnering with us, and it's available free on our website. And we created the clinician version of that, of when they ask you this, how do you respond? We have partnered, the revolution, as you know, people have to take it and make it their own, which I've seen examples of today in the morning. So we are putting out our 7 keys, people are taking it and making it their own. So an indigenous organization in Australia took our 7 keys and adapted it. They used many of the same metaphors, but a couple changed. The Health Canada poster campaign, Tasmania, or Palliative Care Australia, took it. You can see, obviously, the people on the left are from Canada, the people on the right are from Australia, but very similar, but they made it their own. And that's what made the difference. And, for example, they've taken the keys and incorporated it into some of their caregiver-facing education. So we're giving it away. Please take it, make it your own, spin it to your communities, your countries. But that's how we make change. But our most exciting thing is Kathy Cummings heard us speak at a talk. She came up to us, and we decided to partner with Kim Barry, of course, from ALS Canada. And we've been working together with their patients and families, the pals and cows, and other people from around the world, actually several people, to partner on some tools that are specific to ALS.
Okay, so let's talk about the key that I mentioned, zoom out. It was the second of 7 keys. So what we've done on our website is we have put some illness roadmaps, or the big picture or storyline of certain illnesses. We have one for COPD, we have one for Alzheimer's, we have one for ALS, but there's another one.
Cancer, ovarian cancer.
Yes, sorry. And if I can convince CN, we're going to work through like 20 more illnesses so that people aren't met with, oh, we don't have that crystal ball. We don't know what this is going to look like. But we do have the footprint for many illnesses. I see you're trying to speed me up. Okay, so zoom out is about understanding the pattern of a particular illness. And so I have taught these illness trajectories so often in my career as a palliative care physician that I joke with CN that I should have had them tattooed on my body, but I don't. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so when we went to patients and caregivers about our Alzheimer's roadmap to co-design it with them, they took one look at this illness trajectory line and they were nauseated. They did not want to see that line and where it headed. So we thought, okay, no problem. We'll just soften it a bit and make it lighter blue. And then, because we don't want to sugarcoat this whole thing. It has to be about reality. But still, they were allergic to looking at the diagram. And they didn't necessarily always want to know which stage, what it looked like exactly. But they loved the questions on the bottom there, which we will talk about right now. Okay, so on our website, you can access the questions that patients and caregivers found very palatable to them. They felt that this wasn't particularly scary to ask, where are we now in the big picture of this illness? What can we do to be as well as possible? What are common signs that this illness may be worsening? What are important things to prepare for next, and what organizations and resources can support us. That this flimsy piece of paper gives people the right to go to their healthcare provider as a bridge for some of these conversations and not be met with things like, oh, don't go there yet. Oh, you gotta be just positive, and you gotta fight, and we don't have a crystal ball, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and so when we did this with the ALS patients, families, and clinicians, they said the staging is very complicated, it doesn't really fit for our illness, but we love these questions. So these questions are really disease agnostic. This works, or we found it has worked across all the illnesses. So we've kept this. And so we modified that roadmap, that illness trajectory to look like this. I should just say they're launched on our website today, well, yesterday, but today. If you go to waitingroomrevolution.com, they are available now in English and French, free to download. They're funded in part with support from Health Canada and co-designed with the International Alliance and ALS Canada with their logos on the bottom, which we're very grateful for. And so this is an example, I'll pass it to you, Sammy, of how we modified that staging. From the other ones, it's beginning, middle, late, and end stage. But for ALS, I know you can't see, it looks more like this.
Mm-hmm. So it identifies from 1 to 4 the different physical challenges that people will experience in speech and swallowing, lower extremity, upper extremity, and again, this is a conversation tool. We also have printouts actually at our table out by all the food. So you don't have to write this down or take pictures because we brought 300 copies. Thank you, Maggie. And then the next part of the roadmap is what to prepare for, how to prepare for key life changes. And this has a section about, around the time of diagnosis, then while you're living with ALS, and next slide, please.
Oh, no, that's all, we only zoom.
Oh, okay, put that back, please. All right, and also potential big decisions,
Is in the green.
and then navigating the late stages of ALS.
Come by our booth and check out and take it home. But I will say all our other ones are 1 page. With ALS, it became 2 pages because there was
were revisions and
because there was a lot of nuances that we have discovered.
Yeah.
And that was important to patients and families, but also that the relevant providers who could help. So this is really customized to ALS MND, and it's 1 page front and back, I like to say. But check it out. And of course, if there are ways that it's a starting point. It is not comprehensive. It is meant to people to not feel scared to be able to talk about this early in their illness. Okay.
not forced to. This is not forced on people, but those who want more information, who might be interfacing with an uncomfortable healthcare provider, now it's available for them.
Yeah.
We cut out the middle person a little bit.
So in our last couple of minutes, I just want to share with you again, so all of this is available on our website, okay? Those tools, but you come by our booth or table and we can grab some, but you can see all that's available there, the hub. We are very excited because our book, people have read it and said, before I didn't know where to start, but now I'm unfrozen, unstuck, and I know what to do next. I know how to move forward with me and my family. So the other thing they said is, I really wish there was a workbook and a course that went along with this. So we have been working very hard in the past few months. We have a workbook coming out April 2nd. Right, in the break we were, cooking at the copy edit. When the workbook comes out, we're gonna have free materials for a workshop in a box, we're calling it. So for facilitators of how you could take slides, agendas, advertising, so that people can take the materials and figure out what pieces that are going to work for their communities. And we will hopefully next year start train the trainer workshops, because again, no 2 people or 1 person can change the world. We need as many as we can. And we have also been working on education, short provider webinars. That's also on our work plan. We have a lot of things on our work plan for next year, but this year we're excited to announce our workbook. And if you sign up to our newsletter, in January, everybody on our newsletter will get an advanced reading copy of our workbook. So you'll be able to see the exercises. So it complements. If our book is like a guide with stories and explanations, this workbook is very practical, like with a pen and lots of space and lines to write the answers to bring it as exercises to say, this is what I'm looking for. All right.
I taught him how to drink coffee, which I regret from the first day.
We're right at 30 minutes. So the conclusion is everyone is part of revolution. This is not about us or the book. This is about this information belongs to patients, families, and providers. We've had tremendous uptake. We really hope the book and the workbook can be the catalyst, the change, the tipping point. So, we've had providers be like, I can use this workbook to introduce this language to my patients. So it works both ways, and we're working on that, so stick around. But we would love to do a train the trainer with ALS about how to use these materials for our workbook. And that's it, yeah. And we're looking forward to your questions. And just one last, there's one thing that we have to say.
Oh yeah, turn this way and then we'll go 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
Welcome to the revolution.
You would think you've been better than that. Yeah. Okay, Melinda, yeah. While Melinda's coming up, because like I said, we do get some funding from Health Canada, they really want their metrics. So if anybody would like to scan that QR code, this is really important. If you scan the QR code, we have like a 3-question, 10-second evaluation, if you're so inclined. But we would be grateful. Thank you, Melinda.
Well done. Congratulations. Excellent presentation. You finished quick. You made me get my exercise in. What a really lovely presentation. Thank you so much. The inclusion of patients and families, focus on really the beginning all the way through, processing through an illness. I think those are some really important aspects in your work. So thank you so much for presenting. Yeah. We have about 10 minutes for Q&A and questions. Happy to take some questions. Anyone?
It is bright up here.
Yeah, it's true, right? Oh, we have an online question, yeah?
More than a question, 3 people online have already bought the book, so
Yay.
Oh,
The
Nice.
proceeds from the sales went to our workbook, so we're just recycling to get more products out there. Oh, there's one.
Is
There's
there-
some
Yeah, hi.
hands waving back in the back.
You really can't see. Oh, far in the back. Hi.
Thank you. I'm Kathy Collett, a caregiver, former caregiver and an ALS advocate from Indianapolis, Indiana, that has to suffer through the U.S. healthcare delivery system. I think your book is awesome in terms of the concepts it's putting forth. The problem that we had as we tried to put some steps together, these what next things, was healthcare delivery could never deliver at the pace of ALS.
Yeah.
It's like I told the doctor, we're constantly throwing the ball 5 yards behind the receiver.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for how healthcare delivery can learn that ALS is a fast disease and you can't treat it just like any other project? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I would say all the more reason why all of this amazing work has to start right from the beginning. And we really need to shift that desperately from, being retroactive, crisis-driven. We need to try solutions like hopefully this one to be more proactive and plan ahead. And and empower and activate the patients and the families to not have to go at the pace of the healthcare system and bring themselves forward when they identify that things are changing.
Yeah, and I would just add to that to say that the answer is actually only 5% of the care is provided by the formal healthcare system, and 95% of the care is provided by the family and the community. So we should not wait for the lead from healthcare systems.
You got a clap.
Oh, thank
Did
you.
someone clap?
Yeah. We should not wait on the lead or be wholly dependent. We are activating patients and families to seek out information so they can form their own networks and find the ALS associations earlier, because who has the answers? This room has the answers. You guys are sharing innovations, ideas. We went to the suite with all kinds of ideas and sharing. That is where they're going to find better answers than hoping the healthcare system is going to solve the problem. And I'm not saying we don't want to change the healthcare system. I'm just saying we can't wait for the healthcare system to change. We have got to empower our people to find the solutions and tap in to the associations here.
You got
right?
well
You guys are the
said.
answers.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Bravo. Very
Sorry.
well said.
Got excited.
Oh, I see a hand waving.
Cappuccino moment.
Yes. I can't see who it is, but
I'm Dr. Himangi from India. I would like to ask, do you have this book in any other language? And can we get it translated to our local language?
I understood it as, is this available in any other language?
Yeah.
So right now, the truth is we cannot, we would love it to be translated. It's not up to us. The people have to buy the rights. Our tools that we created with Health Canada are English and French, but our podcast, our materials, all our print materials, someone could put it through Google or something and translate it and please adapt it. We haven't had anybody adapt it, but if somebody wants to or can, we would love that. We have lots of free things online that people can adapt. Or let us know, we would love that. The book and the workbook, unfortunately, because of copyright and stuff, we would love that though.
I wasn't sure if maybe there was a second part to your question that we didn't. Oh, was that enough? Okay.
that was it, yeah. So is there an opportunity, I'm going to add to that really quickly, is there an opportunity to take perhaps extracts, particularly the ALS kind of planning checklist, and translate those materials, or are they, Yeah. Because the organizations present in this room are quite extraordinary at making sure that things are translated both in language and culture. So that would be wonderful if that's an option.
Yes, I think the answer is yes. I mean,
Yes.
the ones that we put on our website were co-designed with Health Canada, et cetera. And so,
French.
in English and French, but let's spread it out there. They would be thrilled, like that example of Tasmania. They were thrilled that other people wanted to use the materials that, they helped to support and fund.
Excellent. Is this a question here? No. I make that up? Anyone?
That's it. Okay.
All right, well, we will thank you very, very much. An excellent presentation. All right, now we're going to move on to our next presentation, an online support intervention targeting adult children of people with ALS by Dr. Lene Clem Olson. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Yes, Thank you very much for letting me come back this year at the APF. Last year in Basel, I had the great opportunity to present 4 of our initiatives in the Danish Rehabilitation Center for Neuromuscular Diseases. And now, this year, I'll focus and give you an update on the results from the intervention developed and targeted adult children of a parent living with ALS. So, here we go. So a little bit of the background for this project. So we saw in our clinical practice, and we also heard from both the parents and the adult children that they struggle with unmet needs in regard to their parents' disease. And in a previous group rehabilitation program targeting both the person living with ALS and their relatives, we saw and heard from the adult children who sometimes participated that this wasn't enough. They still struggle with a lot of emotion, dilemmas, and needs that wasn't met in the Danish healthcare systems. We also found that they found it rewarding, but they also needed peer-to-peer support with someone in the same situations as they were. So, unfortunately, as I said, there are no parties in the Danish healthcare system that are responsible for providing support and information for this particular group of relatives. So, on the basis of these issues, we developed and designed an online program targeting adult children of parents who are living by themselves. So the inclusion criteria for this was they had to have a parent living with ALS, they should be 18 years or older, and they should no longer be living at home. This goes for the adult children. So based on involvement of adults living or have been living with a parent with ALS, we interviewed them in 2 focus group interviews, and based on the results from these 2 focus group interviews, we designed and targeted the content, the format, and everything in this intervention for future adult children. So the intervention was carried out during 2 rounds, and it consisted of a 3-month period, with each round containing 3 online meetings lasting 2 hours. The themes for the meetings were psychoeducation on ALS, the cognitive impairment, and end of life. The first theme also included a video about grief and information on where to seek psychological counseling if needed. The second theme concerned what happens when ALS becomes part of the family, changes in family dynamics and family roles. And the third and final theme concerned emotion and dilemmas as a relative, and it also addressed the psychological distress, the emotional dilemmas, and coping strategies. And we pre-recorded some of these presentations, where we also included perspective of some of the adult children who participated in the previous focus group interviews, just in order to share their personal experiences and challenges when looking back in their course of disease for their parents. So the meeting agenda was that we started out welcoming them in a plenary session and to catch up on things that had happened in the last meeting. We also did a presentation of today's theme, kept it very short, and then we moved the participants into breakout rooms for group discussion, with each breakout room consisting of 5 to 6 participants in each of them. And finally, the session ended with comment and question, take-home messages, and a teaser about the theme for the next meeting. But it also concerned information on the possibility to call one of the facilitators for 30 minutes after each session, but also in between the meetings and after the intervention finished. And here you see a flow diagram of how many people we included and how many people actually participated or completed the 3 meetings. So we included during the 2 rounds a total of 61 participants. In the first round, more people actually signed up that we could include, and we had to put 25 adult children on a waiting list. 36 of all the participants completed all 3 meetings, and the reasons for absence during the meetings were death of a relative, they missed the date, they canceled on the date, they had to work, went over vacation, they never showed up, had an operation, or mental distress. We only knew 2 reasons for them dropping out of the intervention, and these were progressed disease stage or lack of desire for group discussions with peers. So this leaves us with a total of 59% of the participants completing this intervention. So to evaluate this intervention, we used a pre- and post-intervention survey. We also registered data on the participants' demographics, and we also did briefings with the 2 facilitators conducting these meetings, one of my colleagues, a psychologist, and one of my other colleagues who is a nurse, to experience which barriers and facilitators did they perceive as being in the meetings, and I participated as an observer of these meetings. So, of the 55 participants who responded to the pre-intervention survey, we had a total of 23 men and 32 women. The majority of them were either married, cohabiting, or in a relationship. And most of the participants had a father who were living with ALS. And this goes for the pre-intervention survey, where we asked the participants about their expectations to the intervention. And we saw that they had expectation about meeting peers who were in a similar situation as themselves. It was important for them to have time to actually exchange perspectives. It was also important for them to have time to talk to other people, to gain knowledge on ALS, but not so much to actually gain a network that they could lean on during the course of the disease when the intervention had finished. This is a very busy slide, I know. But this is just to give you an overall view of the total scores post-intervention in terms of their satisfaction. And as you can see, there are 2 different colors of green. That goes for the first round and the second round. And then the question they were asked to answer. And here we have added up the answers for totally agree or agree. And this is the results based on this. So we saw that satisfaction with the intervention was high in terms of learning from peers, gaining a greater understanding of the parents' needs and ways of coping, and that they generally felt comfortable expressing themselves. Furthermore, they stated that the facilitators delivered the content in a very educational and accessible way, and that the intervention was worth attending. They also generally found the interventions to be satisfying, and that they would recommend the intervention for people in similar situation. They also felt like being part of a community that they couldn't find elsewhere, and that they had the opportunity to talk with like-minded peers who know exactly how they felt, so they didn't have to explain themselves. And they also said that they gained a greater understanding of the disease, and they actually had the opportunity to influence on the topics touched upon, so it was relevant for them. Yes, and that it had also been okay to touch upon sensitive and tough topics. So I brought 4 quotes with me from the post-intervention surveys from the participants, and I'll just read through them. So the first one goes, "I actually think I'll miss it, and I wish there could be a follow-up meeting in a couple of months." Another one says, "I don't think you can prepare for something like this alone. There are too many extreme and difficult emotions. It has been super nice to have someone to process it with." And a third one, "I was skeptical to begin with because I've dealt with the disease alone before we knew it was ALS and after the diagnosis, though I thought I knew enough. But luckily I decided to sign up, and it's never too late to learn." Another thing that I had not thought of before was that it was a huge relief to talk to other people who knew exactly how I felt. And the final, I can only say that these meetings are super nice and that the people behind them have planned and conducted them in a really nice way. Thank you. Rather, 3 meetings are sufficient. Maybe you should think about that. Although I know you have other things to do, and at the end of the day, we are not your main focus, but these meetings are super important. So we asked the facilitators on their experience, facilitators and bearers, in terms of conducting these meetings, and here are what they said. They said that it was a very popular and relevant intervention with people and meetings fully booked. It was cost-effective. It was like a plug-and-play concept. And it provided the possibility to give these relatives targeted information and support in terms of their needs and challenges. And it also included participants across the country and even from overseas. We also saw that the online format was accessible and easy to do for this population to use, and the attendance of both men and women, siblings and people at different ages, and people representing different stages of ALS for their parents. And in terms of the bearers, these are mainly related to the online format, because of course the two-dimensional format makes it very difficult to sense and facilitate a group discussion without it going through the facilitators or without having to point out who's next in line. So the free dialogue was difficult, and it was difficult to facilitate so everyone could have a voice in the large room. And during the breakout rooms, the facilitators did not attend the breakout rooms discussion because they didn't want to interrupt, and they wanted to have the dialogues in the breakout rooms to go on fluently between the participants. We also looked at practice implication for other peoples to take from this. For the facilitators should inform about and things they could be recommended to pay attention to. And based on that, we developed these handsheets. I've also brought some of them in printouts that you can come by and get if you are interested. But where we looked at what have we learned, what would we like other people to learn from our experiences. So we wrote down things to go through and inform about before and during the intervention, also how to create a safe atmosphere from the start, and how to break the ice in a tense group of participants. We also wrote down how to facilitate talks without being present in the breakout rooms, and things to avoid for this particular group of people in an online setting. I'll just give you some examples of these. So, to make the time useful, we needed people to log on time, and we recommended them to log on 15 minutes before in terms of dealing with potential technical issues based on previous experiences, but this population were quite digital. Yes. They also should use individual screens so siblings could be split and not participate in the same breakout room discussions. Everyone should have their camera turned on. They were encouraged to participate actively and pay attention to their own needs and experiences and not talk so much about their parents' disease and progression. And we also encouraged them to attend all 3 meetings in terms of getting a sense of belonging to the group that they kept participating in during the 3 months. Yes. And here is just some things to think about also for how to create a great atmosphere at the first meeting, to break the nervous tension in the group, and also potential icebreaker exercises. And in order to facilitate talks in the breakout room without being present, we talked about the participants, how they had to be open and respectful and pay certain attention to give everyone time to reflect and share their perspective. And we also said that they were allocated based on their own age and life situation, because we found that this was important instead of allocating people where the parents were struggling with 24 hours of assistance or had bulbar symptoms or whatever, but it was based on their situation. And we would also recommend doing short presentation, only use few slides, and also engage the participants during the presentation and afterwards, and provide them with some questions to start the discussion in the breakout rooms. I am finishing. And things to avoid: do not randomize and stuff like that, but you can come by. And if you have any further questions, I'll be happy to take them, either now in the breaks, or if you're here for the symposium, I'm also doing a poster presentation. So please, come by. Thank you very much.
Well done. Bravo. That was fantastic. Thank you so much for an attention to such a critical age group, right? Our younger adults who have a parent with ALS. Thank you so much for your work. Questions in the audience? Oh, I've got one right here.
Hi.
Oh, over there. Over there.
This is not a virtual. This is me, Marcela from Acela. As a child caregiver and young adult caregiver for my dad who had ALS, something that helped me talk with other daughters and sons of people with ALS was that they started talking about their experience. And once I connected with what they were saying, I was able to open up. But it was because someone else was able to put it in words that I was able to open up. I don't know if maybe that would help in your sessions, or having that space so they can actually be easy to talk to, because hi, how are you feeling? It's hard, you know, but if it's someone sharing their experience, maybe that would make it easier for the rest to get involved in the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. That was also why we did the focus group interviews initially, to target the themes, the design of the intervention, and so on. And we learned from round two to from round one to round two how to allocate people into the groups, because they needed to have some experienced peers to start the conversation, and we needed to provide them with questions that they could start the conversation based on the theme of the day. Yeah.
Over here, question?
Thanks, it was great to hear about. I just wondered what made you decide 3 sessions? What was part of that decision making?
So it was part of a development project, and we had to squeeze it in and sort of like try something out, because we know this is a group working. They have, some of them have kids themselves. They are very busy, and they're in between everyday life with their sick parents as well. So we didn't want to make a big bread, or how do you say it in English? But we started out with 3 because we asked them, is 3 sufficient? Do we want more initially? And then we evaluated it in the surveys post-intervention. So some of them want more.
I was going to say, would you stick with 3?
For now, I think we'll stick with 3. But then we're also we're planning on implementing this as a concept, because it's a plug and play. So few resources are used, so perhaps further on in the future, we will be able to expand or put more meetings in, or gather them in groups for those who want to participate later or continue these meetings. So, very good question.
Thank you.
Oh, waving hand in the back. Yes.
Hi. My is the facilitator a psychologist or anyone with training? Like, and are there something going on in the setting?
So I think I got the last part of it. Is anything else going on? But the first part.
Yeah, first part is whether the facilitator is a psychologist or someone with training. And second part is whether there is any commenting in the meeting.
So for the first question, the two facilitators of the meetings were a trained psychologist and a nurse working with ALS families for many, many years and with great expertise within counseling and also the disease. And the second question was?
So there was commenting ongoing in those sessions, or wasn't just a free dialogue?
If it was a free dialogue?
Yeah. Or a structured commenting.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time. Oh, is it free or is that the question? Open discussion or structured?
So, thank you very much, sorry.
Thank you.
So in the breakout rooms, the discussion were sort of like structured, that in terms of them having three questions to start out with, but still they could open up the conversation, take it in different direction if they felt like that. We didn't want to intrude or decide whether they should talk specifically of end of life or if they could talk about how do I talk to my kids about their granddad being sick or whatever they wanted. So they could totally change the direction of the discussions in the breakout rooms.
Thank you. I think we have time for one last question. Is that an online one, Marcella? Yeah. Well, I mean, you never know. It is Marcella.
Don't worry. Melissa Enfinger from the ALS Association is asking, can we get PDFs to the handouts you were referring to?
Absolutely.
How can they do that?
Is it possible to upload them in Feedloop or share a picture of them or send them to you? Yes, yes.
Okay, so Jess will put the link and also message her directly, Len Clem.
Yes.
On the Feedloop app, and she will also send the link.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. That was fantastic. All right. Our final speaker today needs a moment. So I'll riff for a second. No, I won't. Do you need hand helping? You want handed out? Oh, okay. You dropped a, do you need that? Okay. All right. So this is Linda Levine for Family Caregivers, Angels in Anguish.
I have a fan club. That is so fun. Thank you. Bonjour tout le monde. Hello, my name is Linda Levine, and I feel as though my entire life has led to this moment of caregiving for my husband. I don't know how anybody could have been more prepared to be a caregiver than I have had life preparation. My background is in recreational therapy. I created a course at San Jose State University that became the most popular course for a decade on campus called Creating a Meaningful Life. I've been a grief worker for 20 years, specializing in small children, teens, and young adults. I was care provider to my parents, etc., etc. That being said, oh, and I'm married to the most amazing person. Human extraordinaire. Where is he? Back there. And this has been so overwhelming to become a caregiver for my beloved. And what I want to do is empower this room to hear what I'm saying And I've created my slides to be things that you then can say to future caregivers. Oh, I have a clicker here. That's good. I could have come, as I do other places when speaking about grief or caregiving, with all the information and all the data. But this room knows it. And basically, it is to get help as a caregiver costs a fortune. Even if you have the money to get it or the insurance to get it, it's tricky. People are supposed to come, they don't come, etc. And it's exhausting. So I decided to skip that part, because you know it already, and just move on. I have 15 minutes to empower you, to empower caregivers. What I've done is I've taken 4 topics: express, ask, time, and self-care. Because these are things I wish that the OT, PT, neurologist, and everyone would have told me, and probably again and again, because I was in such anticipatory grief shock. And I would love to share with you. You may notice that these spell EATS, E-A-T-S. And I did it that way because when I am not expressing, asking, understanding that time is so different now, and giving myself self-care, I just eat and eat and eat and eat. And also, the job of caregiving eats away at me. So express. Most family caregivers are spouses. I have 15 minutes, so I'm going to talk about my own experience. You can feel extraordinarily alone. I even felt alone with David. He's my best friend. He's my partner. He's the one who got the bad news. Interesting story. David had been tracking his development for a long time, but he's not a complainer. So he would say, oh, I went for a hike and stubbed my toe. I'm like, okay. I'm rowing crew and I'm not as fast as I used to be. Welcome to 50, etc. I wasn't getting it. The guy who doesn't take an aspirin, doesn't take a Tylenol, we go in and they say, you have ALS. I was so mortified that he'd been saying really important things like, I stubbed my toe, I'm tired. And because I missed it, I just felt like the worst wife on the planet, and I became hyper vigilant. Once I knew he had ALS, I was harping on him. Be careful, hold the banister. I heard you choke. And he's like, you choke too, you trip too, leave me alone. That hypervigilance, for me, his ALS began one day and I was gonna be on. And for him, it had been going on for years. So, the way I'd like all caregivers to hear it is your spouse has ALS, but ALS has moved into your home. ALS is happening to you. It is the third roommate. You both have the right to speak up, and even I, who speak to crowds this size and larger, speak internationally, I get white coat syndrome. The people in the room at the multidisciplinary team meeting, they've got the ticket. So I do that thing that one of the last speakers talked about. It's like, okay, sure. Unless you explicitly say, I'd like to hear from David, and then I'd like to hear from you. I'd like you we bring David's sister, who's amazing, to the room as well. She's great, because she says important things like, Linda, breathe. And she's ears in the room. So, in terms of expressing, you want to, I'm sorry. Okay, David and I have talked about this a lot. Watching your spouse decline can in some cases be harder on the caregiver than it even is on the individual. A therapist told me that when somebody has a terminal disease, it's impossible to look in your own grave. I need to tell you as a caregiver, the moment they said ALS, I'm staring in the grave. How long will I have him? Will he suffer? And he was not experiencing the wrenching pain I was. He didn't have the grief fog. In fact, when all this began and he had told his immediate family, he said, I need to write an email to our greater community. He said, oh, I've written it. Here's how it goes. Dear friends and family, I'm happy to report that I know what these symptoms are. And I said, honey, you sound like a lunatic. No one is happy to report they have ALS. All right, so we've had to do a lot of talking because we see things differently. In terms of expressing, counselors are great, support groups are great, but please tell your caregivers that finding support is like shopping for clothes. You don't walk in and go, oh, I'll take that shirt, and it fits. It might feel scratchy. You can give it away. You don't have to go with the first counselor. Ask your friends. If somebody has ALS experience, hooray, but there's not that many out there. Find non-traditional paths so that you can express yourself. For me, I'm artsy. So I write and I create things. In one of those moments in the middle of the night while David is sleeping and I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? He has ALS, what are we gonna do? Him. You do too. You don't anymore because you have a BiPAP. So I wrote in a circle, I feel safe, I feel seen, I feel celebrated, I feel serenity. And all around it were all the things that were going on causing me distress. The Middle East, the election, ALS. Lately, it's like ALS dropped to 3 on my list, I'll just tell you that. Also, I found support with a friend. A friend of mine is 20 years older than I am, and her husband had cancer, and he was given 6 years to live. Well, now she was on her 20th year with him, and they had a really great relationship like David and I, but man, was she tired. She thought she could run the race for 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. And so we decided to meet regularly, and the topic was not our husbands, the topic was us living our best lives. How do we continue the vibrant process of being who we are? And because Gary's amazing and because David's amazing, they were like, rah, rah. And sometimes David is like, have you called Jean lately? Also, find a safe place of some sort, a counselor or support group, before the crisis happens. Because in the crisis, you're not gonna wanna start something new. And I give David a lot of credit because I'm all about therapy, counseling, et cetera. Sign me up for a group. And David's not so much, but he got a counselor because he is so positive and miraculously doing this journey. But he said, if I go down and I have all these feelings, I don't want it to all lay on you. And I'm like, yes, thank you. Express yourself to the care team. Family caregivers are key members of the care team, and often you and the person that is reporting do not see things the same way. I really resonated with that driving talk because in the first year, David reported things that seemed greater than they were. He was putting on his new life. And they were saying things like, how's your walking? And he's like, I walk fine. May I comment? You walk fine, but different than before. I think the PT needs to hear that, right? So making sure that this person has the voice. This is big, ask your partner not to share something in a multidisciplinary team meeting that you haven't heard. There's nothing like sitting there, hearing a new symptom and going, oh my God, I had no idea. So my head is racing. Let me process it and then be welcome to the professional advice. Again, expressing what I observe, and also caregivers have rights, and that does not make you selfish. It makes you a member of the team. And say that again and again to caregivers, because as a caregiver, you're thinking, my beloved, he's not climbing mountains, he's not rowing crew. He's not even staying up very late. He's tired, and I'm good. What do I have to complain about? Well, ALS is happening to both of us. Our blueprint for life has changed. Ask professionals for solutions. They were asking David, can you dress yourself? And he said, yes. It's taking him 3 times longer. They had all kinds of advice, and it's been awesome. He's wearing a shirt that I love that we got on a trip today, but most of the time now, he wears magnetic clothing. He likes doing the Superman. He likes doing that. We asked an OT friend to create this robe thing. He was having trouble drying off after a shower, so we based it on that like baby robes or baby towels, so he can put it on his head, and that's terry cloth. He can use it as a towel. So we co-created that. But the professionals have been exceedingly helpful. Ask peers. At first, David and I were a little nervous to come to conferences like this. We were a little nervous to do the fundraising walks because he has a very slow form of ALS, and I wasn't sure if it would set us back to see where this is leading. What's the next step? What happens when he's not able to breathe on his own? What happens? What we learned was we were empowered by the strength in the room. We love the posters. Go away, go away. Ask for help. Are you all having fun? All right, go away. Okay.
What do you want from me?
Also, ask for help from people who know nothing about ALS. This is our friend Mark. He does woodworking. We bought this expensive chair. David wasn't ready for the lift chair yet, so we didn't get it. Well, now he is. So Mark made this base, and the chair is so much taller now. It's awesome. Ask for respite help, but bring people in. As a caregiver, I am sure nobody can take care of David the way I can. But I need out some of the time, and I'm not even to a place that's down the road. Time changes. If there are caregivers in the room, and I'm sure almost everybody has been a caregiver to somebody, your loved one is moving slower and slower. I kept thinking, why am I always late? I'm even late when he's not with me because I'm doing those last things for him, right? So also, household chores take longer. If David's doing it, a meal takes him 2 days. Seriously, to buy it, to wash it, to chop it, to make it, and then cooking it, right? Take the time to prepare. My biggest anxiety was, how do I do the finances? What's the word, all that stuff. But the more I discussed it with David, he's made me a sheet. We have a to-go bag now of all those kinds of things I need to know. He's going to be good for a long time, but my anxiety never knows that. Time changes because we all know, if we're in love, that you don't get to die, most of us, at the same moment on the same day. But there's something about an ALS diagnosis that changes that. Self-care, know that the caregiver is going to say, self-care, what kind of professional are you? Do you know how busy I am? But just know they're gonna roll their eyes and go blah, 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 blah. But what you need to say is self-care is whatever you need, whatever you make it to be. And I'm gonna say, as a caregiver with empowerment, everybody says self-care because you can be the best caregiver to David you can be, which is so true. And I need self-care because I matter.
Yeah.
Right? This is my life. Remember, self-care can be sitting for a cup of tea. I don't know how many people have said to me, you ought to go get a manicure. I'm like, I've never liked manicures. Why would I go get a manicure, right? It's an individual thing. Also, people tell you what self-care you can and can't do. So I love babies and kids, and people no longer will let me babysit because I'm already a caregiver. I'm like, give me your damn baby. It fills my soul. But I used to babysit, now I have to push. Also, self-care is celebrating. That's my mom, and that's a handicap card. And we had champagne together when we got this card because I had worked so hard to get a handicap parking pass. And so we had a champagne party for the card. That's self-care. Know when you're falling apart. Know that there's no such things as superheroes. Caregivers, you will snap at your beloved. Caregivers, you will withdraw. Sometimes if a family member comes over, you're like, lovely to see you. Because being alone is precious because you're with your partner in a way you never were, a lot. Also, self-care means doing things you enjoy doing together and not talking about ALS, MND. So anguish, ALS is always losing something. MND to me means that I must notice David's decline, his deficits, his disabilities, because I'm the caregiver. And I want to do that so well. There's nothing I want to do better. There's also moments of incredible sweetness and memories that will last a lifetime. This is one of the finest times of David and my life. I wouldn't ask for it, but I wouldn't trade how we've evolved. We make decisions together. We push each other to do our own interests. Caregivers can be better instead of bitter. I don't want to lose David, and I don't want to lose me. And to lose me would be to become bitter. Aren't we cute? Obviously, I need to open it up to questions. Thank you. Do not hate me for pushing you away.
I was
on a roll.
glad that you were thrilled to have me on the stage with you. I loved it, and I have to apologize because I mispronounced your last name.
That's okay. That's okay.
So, yeah, that was pretty fantastic. So a huge round of applause. Questions? Over here, I've got, okay, we have both. I don't know who's first. Jess.
Okay, hi.
She doesn't have a microphone yet, so you go.
Okay. Hi, Linda. Jessica Mabe from Colombia. That was absolutely awesome.
Thank you.
Just want to say. I was a former caregiver to my mom, and like you said, it's so easy to stop caring for yourself, but I just wanted to emphasize the two of you are absolutely fantastic and just learning so much from. I wish I had had someone like you talk to me 6 years ago. So I just wanted to say thank you.
My pleasure.
Bravo. I think we have, here, the microphone's right behind you, hon. There you go.
Thank you. I am from Leticia. I'm from Mexico.
Buenas tardes.
Are you people wonderful? I'm sorry for my English.
Fantastic.
Well, more than a question, she just has a request, which is whether you could actually convey the same message to her caregivers in Mexico.
Are you inviting me to Mexico?
I think so.
Actually, to be real, I do travel as a motivational speaker, and I love Mexico, so let's talk. So I do, I've retired from, what? Oh. I do coaching for people who want to create a meaningful life, who are in any kind of transition, and I do grief and caregiving as my specialty areas, and I do speak all over. So I'd be happy to. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else want to invite her to another country? Yes.
Anybody
Anyone?
online?
Anyone?
I want to make sure
See some
the
hands
online
in the back.
people.
She already lives in the U.S.
I'll go anywhere with Linda. She knows that. But I'll go along to Mexico and anywhere else. Linda, how do you recommend that we support caregivers who are so deeply burnt out or so far gone, right? And you and I have talked about this a little bit.
We
right?
did.
I worked with a caregiver who said, my husband was given up to 5 years to live. We're on year 6. I thought I was going to be done. And I don't know how much longer I can do this, right? We all know there are those caregivers who just say, I wasn't built for this. How do I do this? And while I love every tip you gave, and I wish when I was a caregiver, someone had, like you had talked to me, it sometimes can feel almost too superficial for those that are so far gone. So what is your recommendation to us in supporting those caregivers?
Well, first of all, I would validate, because even in our situation where David is highly functional, it doesn't stop my anxiety, the life change this has caused. So validate their feelings. Also, gently, I would say, gently point out where there are options for them to get breaks. Because a lot of caregivers, as much as they say, I don't want to do this, they won't let anybody else do it either. And they won't look into options. That might be something that you could engage a social worker or care provider, because if they're that burnt, they may not want to do the work. But there are options. There are options to take breaks. Unfortunately, there are caregivers who walk. There are caregivers who, well, they're not caregivers then. They're partners who walk. That is too terrifying. That's another situation. But, you know, we're really good. And in July, I called my friend Jean, who I meet with every 2 weeks to talk, whose husband is Gary. That's who I'm talking about. And she picked up the phone and I said, SOS, SOS, I'm in trouble. I'm snapping. She's like, meet you at our T-spot. So I met her and she just let me say, he knows I'm gonna say this, so this is not terrible or mean. I'm like, he doesn't say thank you like he used to. He doesn't show the appreciation, and I am tired. She's like, of course you are. Of course you are. Talk to him about it. So we did, and we got there. There were other things, of course, but I was like, whoa, I don't know about this. So encouraging people to see it as a roller coaster and that all relationships are roller coasters, that's an important piece. I don't know the answer because I haven't been in that person's shoes, but I think it's important to validate that this is hard and you see them. Being seen is really important. I see you. I want your opinion in the care meeting. I want to help you find a counselor. I want to help you get a dog walker or whatever they need. Thank you for that question.
So we are out of time.
How is that possible?
I don't know.
Maybe you talked too long, Melinda. Maybe you stole my time.
I talked too much, I know. One more, okay, whatever, sure. Let's do it. Oh, it's Allison.
Hey, I love Allison.
Thank you. So I love you, Linda. Thank you. You know I love you, David. Leslie, I love you. I want to give you a different perspective answer on that, though, before we close, because I would say, as a caregiver to my late husband, who was the person who said, I can't do this anymore, but you can't do it for me. I'm going to be the one doing it, that is a form of self-care, self-love, that I say that to you, that I'm saying, I am feeling this way. That is what I needed to do, was to offload that to you for a second. But I'm still going to pick myself up and do what I need to do for my husband. So I encourage you to look at self-care as not necessarily getting away. My choice was to be with him. So help me cope with what I need to be with him instead.
I'll just follow up. When my mom was helping with my dad, I was trying to encourage her to get out. And she said, Linda, I'm gonna rest and I'm gonna go out with my friends when he's gone. Right now, I wanna be with him. I'm like, okie dokie. I hadn't been in those shoes, but I am now.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
That was fantastic. I'll say, given the excitement, absolutely spectacular presentation by Linda, but also by our other presenters.
Absolutely.
The absolute need to talk more, engage more, bring in more voices about caregiving cannot be underscored enough. So I think it was wonderful that we had this session on caregiving. Tiny little plug to do even more. So thank you all so very much. It's now time for a break, but I have to say a couple housekeeping things. Don't forget about the raffle. Go have a look, enter your prizes, enter the draws, buy your tickets. They're out at the little reception desk. And we will be back at 3:35 for the final section of the day. Be free.